My name is Charlotte Willner. I am Executive Director at the Trust and Safety Professional Association, or TSPA, and it is my great honor to welcome you to TrustCon 2025. There are, many of you have asked me this, and I'm telling you, you want to know how many people are here this year, because you saw my slide last year about how it keeps, and my answer to that is as many people as the hotel let us put in here. So we have almost 1,400 of you here today, and we are so grateful to be hosting you. As just a little background, in case this is your first TrustCon, you haven't heard me tell this story before. I started in trust and safety in 2007 at Facebook. I was there until 2013 when I went to Pinterest, did trust and safety there as well. I got to work with some of you well back in the Facebook days, some of you at the Pinterest days. I now get to work with all of you at TSPA, where I went in 2020. You know, it's a wonderful thing to work in trust and safety because you get to be very online. And something that grounds me in my regular life is having friends who are not online. And I was texting with one of them a few weeks ago before this conference, and he said, hey, you want to get together on the 21st? Kids are out of school and summer camp. I was like, well, 21st, I have this conference. He's like, oh, right, yeah. And then he says to me, you know, I saved a meme for you guys. I got a meme. It reminded me of you all, I mean, all of us. I said, all right. And the meme was this tweet. Why do I feel like shit all the time? I ask myself while staring into the flashlight that tells me bad news. And I got to tell him, actually, I am familiar with this tweet. And the reason I am familiar is actually the author of this tweet is speaking at this conference. Olivia Conti, tomorrow, doing numbers on Twitter, but also doing our presentation on the compensation survey results at tomorrow's opening session. Don't miss it. One of the questions I've gotten the most in the lead up to TrustCon this year is, what are you gonna say up there? How's the mood? Are you all okay? Like, how's the trust and safety professional community doing? And it's a funny thing to be asked to be the voice of a community as diverse as we are. TSPA has members from over 40 countries. We host around 2,000 people at our in-person events each year at this point. And among us are people who have been doing this for decades, people who've just started in the field this year. We're a group of all ages, spanning all disciplines, working at companies from two-person startups to platforms with billions of users. Some of you are moderators who review content every day, or maybe you're a policy expert who writes the rules, or an engineer who builds the systems. Some of you are researchers trying to understand emerging harms, or experts partnering with trust and safety teams to get to the right answers. Some of you are lawyers navigating increasingly complex regulatory landscapes. You might work at a company where you've been doing this for decades, or you might be building a trust and safety program from scratch. No matter where you fall in this ecosystem, each of us comes to it with our part to play, our job to do. And since 2020, when TSPA was founded, it's my job to get up here and basically say, wow, weird times, right? In writing the speech this year, which I remind you I have to give every year, you all know, many of you, if you've been here before, know, I'm actually an introvert. And then I made a choice to become the executive director, where I have to give a speech to 1,000 people every year. In writing the speech this year, I had just one sentence at the top of my draft document for weeks. And the sentence was, how many years can I basically go up there and say, hang in there? Because that's what I've been doing, isn't it? Every year I stand on this stage and I say, yes, things are challenging, but also they're getting better. And we can do this, and the field is growing, and trust and safety is more important than ever. And that's still true. TSPA and TrustCon are bigger than ever. This year's TrustCon is the largest event we have ever held. The field is maturing. We're getting better data about compensation and career paths. Governments around the world are finally embracing the idea that trust and safety is a necessary practice. But I also can't ignore that so many things are not getting better. So often in past years, perhaps we felt alone in our work, but at least there was some sort of backstop. You know, surely if even some individual companies or business leaders made questionable choices like building Grok for kids, the broader system would still hold, right? Surely our democratic institutions would prevent the worst possible outcomes. Surely there were guardrails we could count on. Instead, we have watched norms and institutions we thought were solid prove to be more fragile than we ever could have imagined. A lot of our colleagues and friends who should be here today aren't this year because it is not safe for them to travel to this country or even within this country. The political climate, especially here in the United States, has become increasingly challenging for those of us whose work centers on fairness and equity and protecting vulnerable communities. Business leaders in every industry, our own included, have pulled back from commitments to values that we thought were immutable, non-negotiable. Economic uncertainty has seemingly locked us in a cycle of continuous layoffs. So many of our employer companies are trying their best to figure out how to navigate all of this increasingly risky stuff, and our teams still feel the direct effects of that uncertainty every day. So many of us came into this work. Oh, I've got a little chat going on here. What's happening here? Oh, this is the captions. We have accessibility this year, folks. Some things are getting better. So many of us came into this work and choose to stay in this work because of the good it can do in people's lives. And whether it's within our companies or our country or the world at large, this year we've had to navigate the heartbreak of our values being treated as nice to haves, as optional, even disposable. All while undertaking work that drenches us day after day in content that is to most people unimaginable in its violence and cruelty. All while witnessing the rapid mainstreaming of dehumanizing rhetoric that, to those of us who can read the signs, fear is not an endpoint, but a terrible beginning. Each year it's my job to get up here and write the prescription for what ails us, to encourage you to get back out there. And this year, that prescription felt harder than ever to write. And that's why a few weeks ago, when I should have been writing this speech, I was scrolling on Instagram. And that's where I saw this incredible clip from Ocean Vuong, who's a professor of creative writing and a poet at NYU. And I saw this interview from his tour this spring where someone asked him, what does he tell his students about how they can write in a moment like this with all of this going on? Where do you even begin? And he responded, I know it's hard. The world is on fire. However, it has always been on fire. There's never been a single author that had the immense luxury of writing at a time of absolute peace. And so choosing this work, you are entering a lineage of despair. And it's up to you to turn the sentence into a medium from which we can understand each other and make something new out of this. I was captivated by this description. Vuong is talking about writing, but it's really about the work of connecting people to ideas, to ways of thinking, connecting people to different people's lives and perspectives. And that's what trust and safety is. It's helping people be safe, connecting in the most intimate and meaningful ways. And he's right. People have always been complicated. Power has always been complicated. The world has always been on fire. Each of us continues to choose this work, knowing on some level that we are signing up for pain, to see the worst of what people can do to each other, to make impossible decisions with incomplete information, to be criticized no matter what path we take, because too often the only choices we have are a set of pretty bad choices. What can we do when the work is pain and when the moment is painful? How do we turn it into meaning? How do we continue? What I've always loved about this community is how naturally we help each other. When someone posts on our Slack asking for help with a tricky question, people of all kinds jump in with advice. When someone gets laid off, you share job postings, you make introductions. When someone's struggling with a difficult question, you offer to be a sounding board. There's this sense of, even if you're on a difficult journey yourself, of course you're still willing to help a fellow traveler. And that's a spirit we've always tried to harness at TSPA. On your badge at TrustCon every year, you have a little graphic with TSPA's logo, and you can look at it because you're wearing your badge, yes? Yeah, all right. Some people ask about these little glyphs. Are they paper airplanes? Are they moths? They're actually modeled on birds, specifically birds flying in a V formation. Now, all you ornithology nerds out there know that birds don't just fly in V formations because it looks rad, right? It's efficient. In fact, if you're a real ornithology nerd, you know scientists figured this out by attaching heart monitors to pelicans. And if you're looking for a different job, I'm just saying that one, I'd do it. Flying in a V formation makes it easier for the whole flock to get where they're going. In a V formation, the bird at the front is doing the hardest work. They're breaking through the wind resistance. They're creating updrafts that make flight easier for everyone behind them. But the formation is dynamic. They take turns. There's not just some king bird up there always set in the direction, and there's not some unlucky bird condemned to always face the headwinds. Everybody takes a turn. When the lead bird gets tired, they rotate back into the formation, and someone else moves forward to take the lead. And while they're in formation, even when they're resting, they're still moving forward. They're still part of the journey. They're not falling behind, they're not failing, they're conserving energy to lead again when it's their turn. I've been thinking about this metaphor a lot lately because I suspect many of you, like me, are feeling like you've been flying for a really long time, breaking through wind resistance, pushing against forces that seem determined to knock you off course. You're tired, and you were already tired over the latest round of chaos and uncertainty. You're probably tired from the fact that this work never stops, right? From seeing things you can't unsee, from making decisions that keep you up at night, watching people you respect leave the field or be forced out of it, from seeing teams you helped build get dismantled with budget cuts and reorgs. You're tired from being the team that always has to say, well, it's complicated, when everybody wants simple answers out there. From seeing the same problems resurface in new forms, making progress that feels invisible to everyone, even the people who would have been harmed if you hadn't done your job. This journey has already been a long one, and we have to keep going. Now more than ever, we have to keep going. That's why it's so important to have a community to do this journey with. Having people to lean on means you don't always have to be King Bird. Having people to lean on means sometimes you get to rest. And when I say rest, yeah, sure, I mean take physical rest, take your breaks, vacations, stop normalizing hustling and grinding, start normalizing whatever this is. We all know this at this point. What I also mean, though, is giving yourself permission to rest. And that sounds easier than it is. When our jobs are looking into the flashlight that tells us bad news, it's hard to notice what else you're absorbing. It's easy in moments of crisis, especially for people trained in our type of work, especially when everything is crisis, to have the whole catastrophe unfold in your mind's eye the moment we see the first warning signs, to feel like because we can imagine exactly how bad things can get, we're also responsible for preventing all of those possibilities. We do carry a deep and grave responsibility in our work. Lives and livelihoods are at stake every day, but none of you carry that responsibility alone. Sometimes, no matter how hard you work for it, you still won't meet the mark. So often in trust and safety, we internalize that failure. We think if we could just be more efficient, more persuasive, if we could just keep going, if we could just squeeze a little more blood out of that stone. Being in community with each other means that when you're in the thick of it, leading your teams through increasingly complex challenges, you don't have to carry all that alone. Give yourself permission to let that go. Give yourself permission to be present here this week. Let the formation help you. It's easier when we travel together. Some of you may feel like you've been resting. Maybe you're between jobs. Maybe you've been looking for your next opportunity for longer than you'd hoped. Maybe you have a job, but it's boring. I don't know. I'd love to talk to you. I want you to know that this, too, is part of the formation. You're gathering strength. You're preparing for your next turn at the front. And the insights you're gathering this time about what you want from your next role and what you've learned from your past experiences, about what kinds of problems you're most excited to solve, that's not lost time. That's preparation. We all love an origin story in trust and safety about how people got into the field, and the adage is that every random job and experience you've ever had prepared you in some way for trust and safety, right? That doesn't stop being true when you're between jobs. The things you're doing right now are preparing you for your next step. No matter where you are in this formation, what matters is that you're here. Now, some of you may be saying, look, this bird metaphor, it's really nice, but it doesn't work because unlike us, the birds know where they're going. The ornithology nerd back there is like, yeah, we don't have internal magnetic fields. And to this I say, you're right. Birds do have one up on us there. There are some downsides to developing the vast capabilities of the human mind, and one of them is that we don't always know where we're going. I wish I could tell you I had all the answers about what comes next. I wish I could promise you that the road will get easier from here. I wish I could promise you that you will be safe. The truth is, I don't know what's coming any more than any of you do. But I do know this, together we have reason to hope. Some of you may be familiar with the work of Mariame Kaba. She's an American prison abolitionist, and because of that work, she has a lot of perspective on community building. Her latest book is called Let This Radicalize You, Organizing and the Revolution of Reciprocal Care. She talks about hope not as an emotion, but as a discipline. She says in an interview she did on the Beyond Prisons podcast, she said, hope doesn't preclude feeling sadness or frustration or anger or any other emotion that makes total sense. Hope isn't an emotion. Hope is not optimism. I believe that there is always a potential for transformation and for change. Hope is a discipline, and we have to practice it every single day. In her book, she writes, this practice of hope allows us to remain creative and strategic. It does not require us to deny the severity of our situation or detract from our practice of grief. To practice active hope, we do not need to believe that everything will work out in the end. We need only decide who we are choosing to be and how we are choosing to function in relation to the outcome we desire, and abide by what those decisions demand of us. This practice of hope does not guarantee any victories against long odds, but it does make those victories more possible. Hope, therefore, is not only a source of comfort to the afflicted, but also a strategic imperative. Coming together as a community like this is a practice of hope. It's a demonstration of our belief that we are best if we are working together, that the work that we do matters and will continue to matter no matter the winds of business and politics. It is a practice of resilience. It is a practice of defiance. And it's easy in uncertain times to lose sight of how fast we're actually moving, how far we've actually come. What gives me hope is that this community is incredible at building something where there was nothing. 5 years ago, TSPA is only 5 years old this summer. When was the first TrustCon held? Would you believe, even though this is the fourth, it was 33 months ago? There wasn't even a Wikipedia article for trust and safety when I started this job. Today we have a whole calendar of professional gatherings devoted to trust and safety. We have a whole academic journal exploring trust and safety. We've got podcasts and newsletters. They're actually pretty good. We got multiple themed simulation games about our fields. As of last week, this is true, we have an ISO IEC standard for trust and safety. David Sullivan's going to talk about that this week. Nonprofits and universities are teaching trust and safety. There's a whole research conference devoted to trust and safety. We've got a whole open source tooling consortium now. Vinay is going to be talking about that a little later. Our sibling nonprofit, the Trust and Safety Foundation, just turned in the draft for an edited volume on trust and safety. And of course, I was going to put that in here because this is a cross promotion. We've even got our own LinkedIn influencers now, right? We've actually got real life influencers too. Check out Paul Snyder here, rocking the TrustCon merch at a concert. It wasn't the Coldplay concert, was it, Paul? No, all right. Also, incidentally, Paul was the community chair for the program committee this year, and he's on the job market, so call him. None of this existed just 5 years ago, and it's not like we ended up here by accident. This is the kind of community we can build because people care deeply about the work and they care deeply about each other. What gives me hope is the joy of this community. Have you noticed how much we actually like each other? For the most part, I don't know, it's maybe like some asshole in back, I don't know, right? But the excitement you have when someone gets that new job, when the genuine celebration you feel, when someone gets the senior title, you're like, I've always respected this guy and he earned it, yes. Or this girl, realistically, in this field, you know. The energy of this conference. The first time we hosted the TrustCon here at the Hyatt, a member of staff said she'd never seen so many conference attendees smiling in the elevator. She wanted to know, like, what kind of conference is this, putting everybody in a good mood? And it's like, yeah, come to my session, bodily fluids, what to do about them. But that joy, right? That's not despite the difficulty of our work. That's because of how much we care about it and how much we care about each other. In her work, Mariame Kaba stresses the importance of creating spaces in your community to cultivate the practice of hope. Where are you finding your renewal? Where are you finding your recommitment? Let TrustCon be such a place for you. Be with your people. So many of you tell us that TrustCon's like your summer camp, right? It's like a big reunion. And it is our team's greatest honor to make that possible for you. But also, find more of your people. Talk to somebody from a company you've never heard of. Attend a session outside your usual area. Join a conversation where you think you know nothing about what they're talking. Or, I've always found that some of the best insights come from those intersections between different parts of our field. Make sure everyone around you has people. Community isn't just about who you know, it's about creating the conditions where everyone can belong. Look around during the breaks. Who's standing alone? Who looks like they might be at their first TrustCon? Introduce yourself. Ask what they're working on. Take them to lunch. Help them join in the conversation. And folks, encourage those speakers. Raise your hand if you're speaking at TrustCon this year. Yeah, I love to see it. I got feedback this year on a past event from someone outside the community who said, oh, well, it was all very interesting, but I didn't get the sense they were professional speakers. And I was like, well, yeah, it's because we're not professional speakers. It's kind of the whole idea. As TrustCon attendees, your job is to get your peers that public speaking experience. You're going to go in there. You're going to ask good questions. You're going to pay attention. You're going to applaud. If it gets weird, it's okay. Everything's a little weird, They mess up, that's fine. I'm going to mess it up. I already messed it up. I didn't remember the captions, right? This is your flock at TrustCon. These are the people who are going to make your own path possible. Over the next 3 days, we're going to hear from some incredible speakers who are going to share their insights on how they're navigating all these challenges in front of us. You're going to have hundreds of conversations with people who are wrestling with all the same questions you are. And one thing I can promise you is that you are not going to get all those answers here this week. Uncertainty has always been our territory. We've never had a clear instruction manual for this work. Our job here together is to write it. In our earliest gatherings together, we used to talk a lot about, oh, this field, it's so new, what a new field. The reality is we're growing up. When everything's new, you often can't distinguish the signal from the noise. Only with time are you able to discern patterns, cycles. Our field is maturing, and it's developing a life cycle. Jobs are plentiful, jobs are scarce, public opinion goes one way and then another. Things get difficult, and then they get a little easier, and then they get difficult again in a new and creative way. We should expect that by now. A better world is possible, but it will not arrive all at once. And we are not entitled to its arrival. We have to fight for it. The way we get to the other side of this is by continuing to show up for ourselves, for each other, and most importantly, for the billions of people we serve every day. The skills that got us this far, the ability to think on our feet, to make decisions with incomplete information, to hold multiple competing values in tension while never losing sight of what those values mean to us. Those things are exactly what we need to navigate whatever comes next. As an important internet philosopher once said, the horrors persist, but so do I. The world is on fire. It has always been on fire. That is why we are here. There is nobody I would rather be choosing that work every day than this group here. Thank you so much for being at TrustCon. We're so happy to have you here.